Hey everyone, Nico here with my father Pasquale, the Consigliori.
Hello everyone.
And today we're going to be talking about taking charge of your leadership. My father's developed a method. It serves as a roadmap that will tell you where you are, where you want to go, and what you want to do right now. Are you leading your people to proper execution? Just as importantly, are you leading yourself to proper execution? Let's find out. Before we get started, if you or if one of your employees has bumped up against the 200K ceiling, do check out the Talent Broker program at talentbrokerprogram.com. We've designed it for you, the tactics and the strategies for busting through that ceiling and doubling your performance up to 400K. So Papa, let's talk about the signs and the symptoms of someone who hasn't yet taken charge of their leadership, either of their people or of themselves.
Okay, it's interesting, the two are actually quite a bit alike. So if you've got people that you're leading, whether you're a billing manager or a non-billing manager, or if you're self-employed working out of your bedroom or your basement or wherever, the leadership challenge remains the same. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I work hardest to do with my solo practitioners and people that have to lead themselves is work with them to create this kind of like schizophrenic split, so that one part of you is the performer and the other part of you is the manager. And so we're going to talk about the two exactly the same. I'm not going to keep differentiating back and forth. What we find almost always in any kind of recruiting situation is one of two conditions. One, you don't have enough search assignments, you don't have enough clients, so you've got this perpetual burden of marketing on you. It always feels like you're starting your pipeline over from scratch, you're always pushing the boulder up the mountain, it's always rolling back down, so people don't have enough demand for their service, or they have some demand, maybe good quality, maybe not, but whatever the case may be, with whatever kind of demand they have, they're always feeling like they're behind in their search. And so there's recruiting to be done. And how do you go about it? Well, people, to the degree that they have method, to the degree that they know what they're doing, they have things they should do, but most often are either not doing or aren't doing in a timely manner. Sure. Much more often, people are really reinventing the wheel from scratch with every search. And so they're on LinkedIn, they're looking in their database, they're struggling to put together a call list, they make a few calls, but then they don't complete the list. And so the thing, be it from the marketing side or the recruiting side, that you find almost universally is a type of reactiveness. And there's a feeling, there's a feeling like, wherever it is that you're gonna go, you really don't know how you're gonna get there. There's a feeling of frustration that kind of like bubbles up no matter what's going on. And it's almost like the closer you get to completing a placement, or you've made the placement and collected your fee, the more frustrated you are because you really don't know what to do next. I find that pretty much universally, as I said, with both leaders of others as well as self-leaders.
Okay. So, recognizing that in ourselves, if we're in that position where we're experiencing something much like what you just described, what's the first step to take to turn that around?
Well, this, as with so many things, has been a type of explosive discovery for me through the process of the Talent Broker program, where things I've been working on for 2 and 3 decades are kind of refining themselves into a sort of crystal clarity. So this is a new structure for me, and yet it feels like I've been working on this for the past 30 years. At any rate, what I've found is that when we break the leadership burden down into the following 4 sequential steps, we have a totally new approach to it that clarifies where we are, where we want to get, and what we need to do right now. And so the 4 steps are knowledge or know-how, practice, skill, and accountability.
So in that order. Knowledge, practice, skill, accountability.
Absolutely. And they follow each other and they build on each other almost to the point where they end up defining each other.
Okay. Walk me through these 4 elements of it and how one leads to the other.
Absolutely. Whatever it is that you want to get done, you need to know how to do it. The term know-how should be right up there with craftsmanship, in that when we're professional at something, we have know-how. We know how to do it. We've listed previously the 7 skills, the fundamental skills of recruiting. I'm going to, for our purposes, focus exclusively on the first skill, just planning. What's involved in knowing how to generate a good plan? You might be amazed at the number of people who have almost no idea for all the tools, all the resources, all the computer structures, all the online resources, etc., and even all the training, tremendous amounts of training in this, and yet it doesn't seem to sink in. One of the hallmarks of this, one of the symptoms, if you will, is when people are working hard on a search, but they're not coming up with the right kind of talent. They really didn't often know how to do the plan so that it's leading them to the right kind of people. They actually don't have the know-how. So we start out with knowledge, and when you're leading, you need to be able to think through, what is the knowledge required for success? Let's emphasize that question. What is the knowledge required for success? If you have not given that to your people or procured it for yourself, then you have almost no hope of any of the steps that follow.
Sure. Okay. So that's know-how.
All right. We then move on to practice. Whatever it is that you know how to do, you need to do again and again and again. In fact, I'm going to turn to the martial arts for a second here. Think about a good kick. In Taekwondo or any, karate, any of the martial arts. You have to find your stance. You have to be able to balance. You have to be able to balance on one leg. Then you got to be able to marshal all the muscles involved in generating a kick. There's got to be force in it. How many times do you have to do this? The answer is not hundreds. It is thousands. That is practice. Making that kick again and again and again. Well, the same with your plan. You have to generate a plan every day for the thousands of days that are your recruiting career. And the number of days that you do not generate a plan or just kind of like take yesterday's and move it over again today, where you haven't thoughtfully created an actual plan, is a day you are not practicing. So know-how, to be of any benefit whatsoever, has to convert into actual practice.
There's something that we go over a lot in my course that the director points out is that practice doesn't make perfect.
No.
Perfect practice makes perfect. Practice makes permanent.
Yes.
So whatever it is that you're doing, do it over and over again, you're going to
make it permanent.
You're going to make it permanent.
Whatever that is.
Whether that's
for
good
better
or bad.
Exactly.
So how can we ensure that we're doing the right thing in our practice?
That leads us to number 3, skill.
Okay.
And so what you will find is that there are many people, really, especially, it's almost as if there's a negative correlation between intellect and performance here. The smarter you are, the more interested in knowledge you are. So you can read lots of books, you're going to go to all the training, you're going to watch the videos again and again, whatever it is that is your method of input, and you're going to enjoy thinking about all this. But whether you practice or not, maybe a little bit iffy. Whereas on the other hand, you've got people who really don't care about knowledge. They really don't want to procure fine points of detail over their know-how. And so what they will do is just show up and do the work again and again and again. And in fact, in my experience with recruiters, they tend to fall more into the second category than the first. Now, I've had a lot of clients, and the employees of my clients are very intelligent people, lots and lots of know-how that they don't practice. But the thing that I see much more often in the recruiting industry is people that show up, they do whatever they're going to do again and again and again, and instead of a week being 5 days of cumulative learning and new experience in their practice, it's 5 separate days doing the exact same thing. And that's worse at the level of months, quarters, even years. And so knowledge that you have but don't practice does not become skill. Practice that you have is capped off at whatever skill level, like you were saying your chorus director was indicating. And in order to turn into true skill, it has to be informed by know-how, by knowledge. So at the level of skill, what we have is knowledge that is practiced, but practice that is corrected by knowledge. Okay. And so there's learning involved. Let me do one more thing on that. When your practice is not generating the results that you want, you have to recognize you don't have the knowledge you require. When your knowledge is not, but it's good knowledge, but not generating the results, then you're not practicing it enough. And so all of this comes, yes, and all of this comes down to the question of raw, proven skill. Skill has both knowledge and practice captured within it. And when both are there, then you are skillful.
Okay. So what's number 4?
Number 4 is accountability. Now, here, I do have to emphasize a slight difference between leading others and being self-led. Those of us like me who are self-led, I've been working out of the home now for 30 years, we have to have accountability one way or another. Now, when you're self-employed, your family, your bills, your financial obligations are a type of accountability. But for and many of my clients over the decades have been recruiters whose spouses worked, and recruiters whose spousal income for the family covered the need. And so the lack of accountability has been gigantic, perhaps most especially for those. But that's true really go ahead.
Yeah, I think accountability also, sometimes we fall into the trap of being very self-judgmental and very, we'll hold ourselves to a level of account that just
impossible.
It's impossible, and it's actually destructive to our performance. And
Absolutely right.
There are certain times when you're looking at your bills, you're looking at what you need to achieve, and you're saying, this is holding me accountable. But man, do I feel like I'm worthless because I'm not meeting this certain level of performance. And so it's a tricky slippery slope there for accountability, but
it is, and perhaps we need to redefine the word accountability to include a positive vision.
Yes.
And I think that if you take a look at the know-how, the practice, and the skill that has been established as the basis of accountability, you'll find the foundation for that positive vision. So when holding yourself to account, you want to ask, do I have the know-how? Have I executed my practice? And have I shown that I have skill? If so, then what is the positive purpose that I want to be held to account for by myself or by a leader? Or if you're the leader holding someone else, you've got to empower that individual, be it self or other, with that positive vision that it can be done.
Yeah.
But let's go the other direction now. Skill can exist in a proven state in the distant past. So let's say you've got the know-how, you have practiced it so that we can establish the back and forth. You know how to correct your performance against the know-how, so you have skill, but still your performance is not coming through per plan. This would indicate a lack of accountability.
Sure.
And so I often find people with tremendous skill that just can't muster that skill on a daily basis. Often I think it has to do with what you were saying, Nico, about the lack of a positive vision when it comes to holding one to account.
Yes.
And let me say all of this in one more way. You can know that you have accountable skill, be it in someone else or yourself, when you can look forward to your goals and their deadlines, and you're hitting, let's call it a minimum of 80% by deadline. So be it, let's say, you had a $100,000 goal for the year and you did $80,000 that year, you were accountable that year.
Sure.
And there's lots of different ways you can slice and dice the 80% on it. But if you're not coming up to the level of 80% of your goals, but you have the knowledge, the practice, and the skill, at least at some point in the past, then we can pretty much establish there's a gap in accountability. Pretty much for sure.
So we're coming to the end of our video here. Let's walk me through the process of using this roadmap with an employee.
Absolutely. So the thing you want to do first is ask yourself, if you're the leader and you have an employee, do you know what the other individual has in their head as know-how?
Okay.
Have you given them this information at all? Have they just picked it up by osmosis or whatever, right? Have you sent them for the training? Have you purchased the training materials and provided it to them? Or have you given them the training, but did it sink in? See, the leader often has a tremendous amount of knowledge about the know-how of his or her followers, but they don't access it. So that's always the starting point. In any kind of, if we wish to improve performance, if we want to correct a problem, we always want to start out, is the knowledge about how to do this, the know-how, is that in place?
So the precise first place to start would be with planning, since that's the first of the 7 fundamentals.
Absolutely.
The 7 fundamentals we went over in our last video.
Yes.
The question would be, does my employee, does my recruiter here have the knowledge relative to proper planning?
Absolutely. And again, let's look at that case where somebody is working hard, but they're not generating the quality of talent that excites the hiring management on the search. Mm-hmm. Do they know how to search for that talent? Do they know how to identify not only the technical skills and qualifications required of the position, but the softer things, the chemistry, etc., that is going to, again, excite a hiring manager with positive vision? This is going to be a high caliber hire. Okay. If they don't have that know-how, that's the place to start.
So that's know-how on planning, then practice.
All right, so are your people executing what they have been trained?
Okay.
So there's training, you have your meetings, again, all the various resources that you're employing. And when you put a check in the box that you know that your people have the know-how to get their plan done properly, mm-hmm. Are they doing a plan every day? Okay. And so we are going to skip to accountability on that one. When they have the knowledge, but you're not certain about the practice, you as the leader, and this absolutely applies to those of us who are self-led, we have to increase, maybe even explode our accountability over practice before it's going to develop into skill.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So from practice to skill, then the next question is?
Skill itself. And that is the consistency with which performance or practice is corrected by know-how. So when performance, so I'm generating a plan for my day. Mm-hmm. When my manager comes around to check my plan, and he will check against the job order, again, on the recruiting function. Or if we're focusing on the marketing function, are there enough people? Have they been properly identified? Mm-hmm. Can we make the calls rapidly? Or are we doing research for our next call in advance of the call so that our screen time is 5 or 10 times what our phone time is? Okay. So all of this needs to be corrected against the knowledge about how to generate the plan and the practice of doing the plan every day. Mm-hmm. Now, when there's a skill problem, what that means is that we've already done this with accountability. We've already covered the knowledge. We've already covered the practice, but we see that performance isn't happening anyway.
Okay.
And so that, again, is where the accountability relationship has to come in. And I'll make one more point, and it's kind of an anticipation of what we'll be working on in the future. All of these areas, knowledge, practice, and skill, in the world of accountability require a solid agreement. Mm-hmm. If you're my follower and if I'm your leader, we need to be able to talk about what you need to know. We need to be able to talk about what you have to practice. We need to be able to talk about whether or not you've established your skill set. And if we can't come to agreement about that, about each of them and about what we're going to do, not only will the accountability not work, it actually speaks to the fact that we don't have the right kind of a relationship. Sure. And so agreement is where all of this comes together, and we'll be talking about that more in the future.
Great. Well, thank you very much for mapping that out for us. If you have any questions about how to apply this roadmap to building the right relationship to your employees or even to yourself,
yes,
don't hesitate to reach out to us. And again, if you're bumping up against that 200K ceiling and you want to burst through to 400, do check out talentbrokerprogram.com. We will see you next time.
Thanks.